Plato, I like your cave. Starting strong with Plato's allegory of the cave, probably the most famous metaphor in all of philosophy. In the allegory, prisoners are chained in a cave, watching shadows on the wall, thinking that's reality until one escapes and sees the actual world outside. So when Plato says, I like your cave, he's basically saying, I appreciate your current level of understanding, even if it's not the full truth yet. It's simultaneously condescending and flirtatious, classic philosopher move. He's the guy who would mansplain reality to you but make it sound romantic. The cave represents our limited perception of truth. Plato believed in a world of perfect forms, like there's a perfect chair somewhere in the metaphysical realm, and all actual chairs are just crappy copies. So your cave is your imperfect understanding of reality, and he's saying he finds your ignorance cute? Honestly, that's pretty on brand for someone who thought most people were too dumb to handle democracy. Freud, baby want milky kissies? This line taps into his theories about oral fixation and the Oedipus complex. According to Freud, we all get stuck in different psychosexual stages based on childhood trauma. The oral stage is all about, well, mouths and feeding and the relationship with the mother figure. Someone with an oral fixation might smoke, chew gum constantly, or in this case, want milky kissies. The line works because Freud would absolutely analyze your romantic desires as stemming from unresolved childhood issues. He'd probably tell you that your attraction to someone is really just displaced feelings about your parents, and somehow make that sound like a pickup line. Classic Freud, making everything about sex and childhood trauma. Kant, may I critique your beauty? This one's brilliant because Kant literally wrote Critique of Judgment, which includes his theories on beauty and aesthetics. But the beauty of this line is in the may I. It's peak Kantian ethics. Kant's whole moral philosophy is based on treating people as ends in themselves, never merely as means. So asking permission before critiquing someone's beauty is actually following his categorical imperative. You're respecting their autonomy and dignity as a rational being. Plus, Kant believed that aesthetic judgment was universal but subjective. We can argue about what's beautiful, but ultimately beauty exists in the relationship between the observer and the observed. So critiquing beauty isn't about being mean, it's about engaging in philosophical discourse about aesthetic experience. Only Kant can make objectifying someone sound like a respectful intellectual exercise. Hegel, your lips, my lips, dialectic. Hegel's dialectical method is all about thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Two opposing ideas clash and create something new and better. So, your lips, my lips, dialectic is actually describing the Hegelian process of historical development through romantic metaphor. Your lips are the thesis, his lips are the antithesis, and when they meet, synthesis. It's the philosophical process of contradiction and resolution, but make it sexy. Hegel believed that history progresses through these dialectical conflicts, so really, kissing becomes a metaphor for the march of human consciousness toward absolute knowledge. You're not just suggesting physical intimacy, you're proposing to participate in the fundamental process by which reality unfolds itself. That's some next-level game right there. Rousseau, I wrote you 100 poems. Rousseau was the ultimate romantic before romanticism was even a thing. He wrote Julie, or the New Heloise, which is basically a 700-page love letter disguised as a philosophical novel. The man understood that feelings and passion were just as important as reason. While other Enlightenment thinkers were all about rationality, Rousseau was like, actually, emotions matter too. He believed in the natural goodness of human feelings before society corrupts them. So writing 100 poems isn't just romantic, it's philosophically consistent with his belief that authentic emotion is the path to truth. He's not playing games, he's being authentically himself, which is very Rousseau. Schopenhauer, girl spelled backwards, is life. This line perfectly captures Schopenhauer's pessimism about existence and his complicated relationship with women. Schopenhauer thought life was basically suffering driven by blind will that keeps us constantly wanting things we can't have. But he also had some pretty problematic views about women, which he expressed in essays like On Women. He saw women as fundamentally different from men, more driven by instinct than reason. So girl spelled backwards is life suggests that women represent some kind of opposite or escape from the suffering of existence, which is both romantic and deeply weird. Schopenhauer did believe that aesthetic experience and compassion could temporarily free us from the tyranny of will, so maybe this line is suggesting that romantic love offers a brief respite from existential suffering. It's like he's saying you're the opposite of my philosophical pessimism, which, coming from Schopenhauer, might actually be the highest compliment possible. Nietzsche. Thus Simp Zarathustra. Thus Spoke Zarathustra is Nietzsche's most famous work,
where he introduces ideas like the Übermensch and eternal recurrence. So, thus, Simp Zarathustra is brilliant because it's taking his most profound philosophical work and applying it to simping. Nietzsche was all about creating your own values and becoming who you really are beyond conventional morality. The Übermensch doesn't follow society's rules, he creates his own meaning. So maybe simping, when done authentically and without resentment, is actually a form of self-creation. Nietzsche also talked about amor fati, loving your fate, embracing everything about your existence, even the painful parts. So thus Simp Zarathustra could be about fully embracing your romantic desires without shame or apology. You're not simping because you're weak, you're simping because you choose to, as an expression of your will to power. Heidegger. The horny grows as simping power grows. This references Heidegger's obsession with being and growth and authenticity. He had this whole thing about humans being thrown into existence and having to create meaning through authentic choices. Heidegger believed that authentic existence requires owning your emotions and desires rather than fleeing into abstract concepts or social conformity. So embracing being horny and simping could actually be seen as more authentic than pretending you don't have these feelings. The growing part connects to his ideas about how being unfolds and reveals itself over time. Maybe he's saying that romantic desire and the vulnerability of simping actually help us understand something fundamental about existence. It's peak Heidegger, taking something basic and human and making it sound deeply ontological. Lacan, please castrate me. Lacan's whole psychoanalytic theory revolves around castration anxiety and the symbolic order. In Lacanian terms, castration isn't literal, it's about losing the imaginary wholeness we had as infants and entering into language and social reality. The castration complex is supposedly what allows us to develop properly as subjects. By accepting symbolic castration, we can participate in culture and language. So, please castrate me is actually asking to be fully inducted into the symbolic order. It's a request for psychological maturity. Of course, Lacan also had theories about how romantic relationships are fundamentally impossible because we can never truly know the other. So maybe this line is about embracing that impossibility. It's very Lacanian to make psychological development sound like a kinky request. Deleuze and Guattari, deterioralize me slowly. Deterioralization is a key concept from their work together, especially in Anti-Oedipus. It's about breaking down established structures and categories, creating new connections and possibilities. In their framework, desire isn't about lacking something. It's a productive force that creates new realities. So, deterioralize me slowly is asking someone to help break down your established patterns and boundaries, to open up new possibilities for becoming. The slowly part is important because Deleuze and Guattari were interested in gradual transformation rather than revolutionary breaks. They wanted to create lines of flight that escape from dominant structures without just destroying everything. So this pickup line is actually about mutual transformation and the creation of new forms of intimacy. Baudrillard, thirst for horniolation. Baudrillard wrote about simulation and hyperreality, how our media-saturated world makes it hard to distinguish between real and fake experiences. The thirst for annihilation connects to his ideas about how consumer culture creates artificial desires that can never be satisfied. The misspelling horniolation actually makes it more Baudrillardian because it suggests the breakdown of language itself under the pressure of simulation. Maybe our romantic desires are just simulations of simulations, copies without originals. Baudrillard was fascinated by how desire gets manufactured and manipulated in late capitalism, so this line might be saying, I know my horniness is probably artificial, but I'm going to embrace the simulation anyway. It's postmodern romance, acknowledging the artificiality while participating in it anyway. Zizek, 99% are boring idiots. I am the right one. This is pure Zizek energy. The man has built his entire career on being the provocative intellectual who says what everyone else is afraid to say. He's famous for his controversial takes and his willingness to offend people in service of what he sees as truth. Zizek's whole philosophical project involves puncturing ideological illusions and revealing the obscene underside of seemingly normal social relations. So claiming that 99% of people are boring idiots is very on brand. He's the guy who would use Lacanian psychoanalysis to explain why your taste in movies reveals your repressed desires. The confidence is also very Zizek. He genuinely believes he has insights that other people are missing, and he's not shy about saying so. Whether you find this charming or insufferable probably depends on how much you enjoy having your assumptions challenged by someone who sniffs constantly and makes weird hand gestures. The real question Here's what's actually interesting about this meme. It shows how philosophical ideas can be surprisingly personal and emotional, even when they're dressed up in abstract language. These pickup lines work because they reveal something true about each thinker's worldview and personality. Philosophy isn't just abstract theory. It's deeply connected to how we understand ourselves and relate to other people. Maybe the best way to understand a philosopher isn't through their formal arguments, but through imagining how they'd try to get your number at a coffee shop. And honestly, some of these lines might actually work on the right person. There's something attractive about intellectual confidence, even when it's completely ridiculous. Just maybe don't lead with the Freud one.